So Simon, tell us a little bit about really the development. What led to the development of this new certificate? It's not something that bankers have done in the past.
No, it's not. But we heard from Sean in her introduction and from the panelists about why addressing climate risk is a priority for central banks, regulators, financial institutions, the finance sector as a whole, and a little bit about why some ambitious collective action is needed to align our sector with net zero and achieve the challenging sort of interim targets for 2030 and so on. And to ensure the finance sector has the capacity and capabilities required for that, I think it means we need equally ambitious collective action to upskill and reskill finance professionals, which is, of course, where the Chartered Body Alliance comes in, kind of building on Sean's comments and bringing us together. We're uniquely placed to lead the upskilling and reskilling of professionals right across the financial services sector, right across the world. And so it's been wonderful to be able to bring together not just the three chartered bodies, but our cross-sector syllabus panel. You met four of our experts earlier, and between us, I believe we've developed a robust, rigorous, but above all, practical and practitioner-focused qualification that covers the areas we'd expect all finance and risk professionals to be aware of.
And in that vein then, so did you get panelists who represented all different sectors? Because you're covering a real wide finance waterfront here.
Yep, we did. I mean, we drew panelists from panel members from all three professional bodies, so banking, insurance, investment. We're also delighted to be joined by academics from the University of Edinburgh. And that's particularly helpful on some of the climate science content that sort of underpins the whole area. I think that we had 12 panel members in all. So whether we covered absolutely every aspect of financial services, I'm not sure, but it's been really interesting, exciting for us as a banking institute to have that different perspective that comes in from investment and insurance and so on. And as I said in the panel earlier, I learned a huge amount through the process myself.
So in essence, then, this qualification is really not just for bankers; it's for insurers, it's for wealth managers, it's in fact for the whole finance profession.
Yeah, absolutely, and we are quite specifically aiming this at all finance and risk professionals. We talked about why this is important to everybody in terms of climate risk being a cross-cutting risk and being a priority for regulators and so on. But as you know, Mark Carney has set our sector the objective to ensure that every professional financial decision takes climate change into account. And I think to pass the Carney test, then surely that means that every finance professional, asset managers, advisors, bankers, insurers, investors, risk managers, we all need to be able to develop and be able to apply an appropriate level of professional expertise in areas of climate risk and climate finance. It's critical if financial institutions and finance overall are going to meet our 2030 interim targets and then our mid-century net zero commitments.
So, having tantalizingly dangled some knowledge there about the contents, tell me some of the main learning objectives that people are going to take away from doing this qualification.
Yeah, so we begin with looking at the basics of climate science that underpin the whole area and the relationship between climate change, the environment, the economy and financial services. We're not expecting bankers and investors and insurance professionals to be climate science experts, but we do need to understand the basics to be able to work with experts, and we need that as a basis for developing our professional judgment in this area. Of course, we look at climate risk itself. We look in detail at the physical and transition risks that we talked about earlier, plus the liability and litigation risks too we mentioned. We look at some of the key frameworks out there, the TCFD, some of the ways of measuring alignment, PACTA and the science-based targets. We compare and contrast regulatory approaches and responses to climate risk at global, regional and national levels, looking at how some of the regulatory approaches are beginning to harmonise thanks to the work of bodies such as the Network for Greening the Financial System and the work of the various sustainability standard setting boards, as Leon mentioned in the panel earlier. We then move on to look at the final two areas. We look at how we can develop and sustain strong, purposeful, climate-aware cultures, and also look at the opportunities for the financial services sector from the transition to net zero. Not just the commercial opportunities as a form of risk mitigation, I guess, but the opportunity to further rebuild the connection between financial services and society as we tackle the global climate crisis, which is hugely important.
That sounds like a heck of an agenda. I mean, how long will it take the average student to actually complete that? How many hours is it going to be?
It is. Well, we are trying to pack in a lot. It's true, but formally speaking, the certificate in climate risk is a 13 credit qualification, which equates to 130 notional learning hours, which is similar to many similar professional certificates that our three bodies run. Personally, I'd estimate that a kind of a diligent student balancing work and study might, on average, study for, let's say, 5 to 6 hours a week to work through this. It's chunked into nine units, so spending an average of a fortnight, 2 or 3 weeks on each, I think is perfectly manageable. Although, of course, it does depend on existing subject knowledge and work and family commitments and so on.
Well, I was going to ask you about existing subject knowledge. Is there any prerequisite to take the examination?
No, there isn't. This isn't a qualification for people who are already climate risk experts or specialists. This is for all finance and risk professionals who want to develop their knowledge and expertise in this area.
So what level is this qualification? I know you have, in Scotland, you have a different level. In the UK, we have another different level. Can you give me both the numbers?
Yeah, so the certificate in climate risk is a QCF level 4 and SCQF level 8 qualification, which in plain language means it's similar in level to the first year of a degree program, which is the same as our current certificate in green and sustainable finance, and of course many of the other professional certificates that the Chartered Body Alliance bodies offer. I think it's important to stress that this isn't intended to be a rigorous academic treatment of climate risk. There are some wonderful university programs out there that do that. What this is a practical, vocational, practitioner-focused program, aimed at finance and risk professionals who want to be able to apply the principles and practice of climate risk within their daily activities in their role and their firm.
So a level 4 qualification in England is the same level that you have as a benchmark qualification for advisors.
Yeah,
puts it into perspective. And so, what about the actual test itself, the exam? What format does that take?
So the certificate in climate risk is assessed via a 75-question, 1.5 hour multiple choice online exam with a pass mark of 60%. So you receive an instant result, hopefully a positive one, and I'll be expecting you to take it, Simon, certainly. You can take your exam in one of more than 5,000 exam centres worldwide, more or less on demand. So there are no fixed exam dates. That's important to understand. But if there's not a centre near you, or you can't, or you don't want to travel, you can also take your exam at home or in your office using remote invigilation, which for obvious reasons has been very popular over the last year or so. But we actually introduced this before lockdowns, partly to reduce the carbon footprint from our students traveling to exam centres, which is a major source of scope 3 emissions. We wanted to practice what we preached. It doesn't suit everybody, I know, because you have to have a quiet working space and the right equipment and connectivity. But between the 5,000 exam centres and remote invigilation, I think we've removed as many barriers as we can to participation. And so the certificate in climate risk is as inclusive as possible for the whole global financial services community, which is very much what we are aiming to achieve.
Remote invigilation, certainly, I think we've all the bodies have been using that, and it has been transformational, actually giving greater access. Now, in terms of the student journey, and I'm conscious we have a couple of minutes left, how's the student looked after? What support does the student get, and how are they going to get the information to learn for the qualification?
Yeah, so it's a fully online program, and the learning approach, which we pioneered very successfully for the certificate in green and sustainable finance, includes interactive e-learning modules with audio and video that introduce and support each unit. There's self-study using the online study guide, which contains a very wide variety of reflective learning activities and case studies. There are knowledge checks at the end of each unit. And I think absolutely key, there's a lot of personal reflection on an application of what's been learned, which is a core part of our approach to professional learning and development. So it's a fully online, fully supported online journey.
So at the end of the day, then, do you think people will understand what Mark Carney meant by shades of green and what greenwashing is and isn't?
I think absolutely you'll understand that, and lots more. So Mark Carney actually talked about 50 shades of green, but as you'll find in the book, we're talking about perhaps 500 shades of green.
Okay, I'm conscious we've got to go, but one last question. I'm sold now, let's say. How much is it? How do I register?
So the certificate in climate risk costs £565, which includes all the study materials and one exam sitting in an exam centre or via remote invigilation. The only additional cost is a £30 student membership fee. And if you need a resit, there's a £120 resit fee available. So to find out more and to register, simply visit the certificate in climate risk pages on the Chartered Banker, the Chartered Insurance, or the Chartered Institute for Securities Investment websites. Whichever institute you are a member of or have an affinity to, you can find out more and you can sign up from your own body's pages. Behind the scenes, we at the Chartered Banker Institute will then be sending you the materials